Good evening, Mount Vernon. All right. Today is February 10th, and this is our city council work session. We do have a jam-packed night tonight. We have a few presentations. First and foremost, we're going to start with the Boys and Girls Club has a presentation, so we're going to have them come up and start.
Good evening. Thank you for putting us on the agenda today. Thank you, Council President Brown. Tonight, we are here to talk about Boys and Girls Clubs of Mount Vernon vision for the next 75 to 80 years. Tonight, we will have myself talk a little bit about what we're doing, our programs. Our board president, Rob Potak, will talk. Our architect, Bob Foffman, will share with you the first rendition of what we hope our new building looks like. And our attorney, Steve Rabel, will also make some comments for you. Let me get right to it. Boys and Girls Club of Mount Vernon has been serving the Mount Vernon community for 113 years. The last 68 years, we've been doing it out of 350 South 6th Avenue, which most of you, if not all of you, have been to. And the building has served us well, but it's time. It's time to build a new club, to serve more youth, and to create the next legacy for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Mount Vernon. Boys and Girls Clubs traditionally have been known as gym and swim operations. Well, we don't have a pool. We do have a gym. But over the years, the needs of youth have intensified, increased, and the world was never simple. It's really not simple to be a young person now. As we try to develop the next wave of leaders, there's three things that we focus on at the Boys and Girls Club. One is academic success. Very proud to say that in the last 13 years, 97% of our high school seniors that stay with us have graduated from college. Very proud. I'm sorry, graduated from high school. We also promote healthy lifestyles through everything we do, healthy eating, restraining from the use of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and eating healthier foods. We do that by providing a healthy snack for kids every day, as well as a hot meal every day. We serve 22,000 meals a year for our kids. And the third thing that we focus on is community service and community engagement. We try to get our kids interested in serving the community at an early age. We believe that if young people start doing community service when they're young, it becomes part of who they are, and they become part of the solution of the issues in the community as opposed to becoming the issues in the community. So those are the three things that we focus on, and we do it through a variety of programs. Our main programs is our after-school program, which serves kids from 6 to 13, from 3 to 6:30 every day. And it is a full complement of programs, which every day begins with what we call Power Hour, which is our homework help program. They get a snack when they come in. After Power Hour, they get their meal. And then there's a variety of activities that take place that kids go in by age groups, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, and 10 to 13. They travel together. In the evenings, we have our teen program for teens ages 14 to 18. A big part of our teen program is basketball. But basketball gets the kids through the door. We then present options for them. Does every kid who comes in to play basketball take advantage of the other programs? No. Many are just coming in to play basketball, but many go into other things, including some of our college trips, which we take 2 to 3 a year, including trips to the theater, trips to sporting events. We try to keep young people engaged and involved. Our kids come to city council meetings sometimes. They go to county meetings. In July, we'll be taking at least 4 teens to Washington, D.C. for the annual Summit for America's Youth. Also, since COVID, life has changed. And mental health issues have always been with us. They're not new. But we realized while the kids were away, they lost a lot of the basic skills that we had been working on with them to develop. So we have, within the last 2 years, we have brought on a part-time mental health professional to work with our kids, having tremendous impact on our youth. Kids, families are coming in, are working with our mental health professional, and we see differences in behavior. We see differences in how they deal and interact with each other. We also work closely with the community. We run on Saturdays, the Alpha Stars cheerleading group uses the club. The Revelators have used the club for the last 25 years, the dance troupe that features hip hop, African dance, gospel dancing. We also just recently started an evening basketball program on Saturday evenings to keep young people and teens off the streets. We are very excited about the prospect of a new building. We want to be able to serve more kids. We want the kids in Mount Vernon to deserve a state-of-the-art facility. We've made the best use of our facility, but it really is time for us to build and to do something that we can all be proud of. We look forward to your feedback, and we look forward to the rest of our presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our board president, Mr. Rob Potak. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and once again, my name is Rob Potak. I'm the board president, and I just want to thank everyone for giving us this opportunity tonight to discuss our project. As Mel said, we're here to serve the community, and years ago, the board, in conjunction with the staff, realized that the building that we are housed in now has outlived its useful life, and we decided to go down this journey to determine where else we could situate. We did explore seeing if we could work something out on our existing site, but through months of deliberation and planning, we didn't find it to be feasible. We would have had to acquire somewhere between 4 to 6 houses next to our existing building. Obviously, that would all be voluntary acquisitions, and we had no way to determine if our neighbors would want to leave their houses and sell them to us. It also did not solve one of the big issues we have now is there's no great way to drop off the kids and have them being picked up because we're right on the street. We've explored the vacant land that abuts the Dole Center. We had several conversations with the city to see if that was a viable option, and for a multitude of reasons that also did not pan out. And then we landed on this property on First Street between First and Second Avenue. that we came to find through a board member who used to run Putnam County Savings Banks, which is the current owner of this piece of land. And through some conversations with the current leadership of the bank, we arrived at a deal to acquire the land. And we think this parcel really serves us and serves the community very well. It brings us obviously closer into the downtown area. We're still on the south side, which is where the core of our current membership lives, but we also think it will expand our reach within the whole community, that some people that might not be willing to send their kids to our current location, we feel in this new location, it would be more advantageous for us and the community, and people who currently are not members and don't use our services would join us at this new location. One of the other big driving factors when the board explored the need for a new facility, as Mel said, our two big programs are the after-school program for the younger kids and the teens. Because of the size constraints of our current building, we cannot house the teens immediately after school, so we have to run the after-school program and then the teen program. Having two teenagers of my own, I understand that once teens get involved in something, it's hard to regain their attention. So because of that constraint, we think we are underserving the amount of teens that we could serve, because they finish school, they get involved in other activities, and then when we're ready for them at 6:30, they might have moved on. In this new proposed facility, it'll be large enough and there'll be dedicated space that the younger children and the teens can come immediately after school, which we think will attract substantially more teens to the club. A few other quick things just to mention. The club will be about 3 times the size of our existing clubhouse, and that will allow us to offer even more programs. We're designing an industrial kitchen, partly to serve the meals that Mel mentioned, but also we want to introduce a culinary arts program, because some kids after school might want to go to college, after high school, go to college. Some might want to go to a technical school. Some might want to get into culinary arts. So we want to offer that as an opportunity for the youth. We also are going to have a much enhanced teen center and a tech center. Obviously, everything going on today with AI, with technology, with 3D printing, we don't have those resources, capabilities, or room right now to provide that programming in our current club, but we know we will in the new facility. The new facility will have a nice rooftop soccer field, not full length, but obviously getting the kids outside is helpful most of the year in the nice weather months. Having a safe place, a safe playground that they can play outside more year round, which we cannot offer now. Obviously, there will be a gym as we have in our current clubhouse, and we're looking for an expanded game room for the traditional games we have now, but youths also want to have more and more technologically advanced games, and we could have a nice hybrid approach in this facility, the new facility, which is not an opportunity in our existing facility. So in summary, we've explored multiple options for land in the city. We think this one best suits our needs and best suits the community in that it can serve the entire community, not just the south side. It will allow us to offer substantially more programs and reach substantially more youth than we currently can based on the space constraints of the existing facility. So we think it's really a great win for the community in that we can continue the services that we provided for multiple decades and now provide those services plus enhanced services for substantially more children of the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. You can go to the previous slide. This is a 3D bird's eye view. I'm Rob Foffman, by the way, architect, and I'm really honored to be here in Mount Vernon to work on this project with the Boys and Girls Club. Those of you know the site, it's near the Westchester County Social Services Building. It's near the library and it's near the post office. There's an existing bank on the site now. If you go to the next slide, I believe it's more of a, that's the footprint of the proposed building in white you see there. And the key to this site, which is so much better than all the other sites, is the ability to create an internal courtyard and drop off. So you're bringing cars into the courtyard, not out in the middle of the street. So we have room for 2 buses to pull up in addition to 10 parking spaces right within that courtyard space, as well as storage for the vans. And then you enter the building from the courtyard. We're very excited to make this probably one of the highest performing Boys and Girls Club in America. Our funders really want to make sure that this is a green building. So we are looking at a number of different techniques to do that. If you go to the next slide, we may be, I'll go forward now. Yeah, keep going, right there. So that's the first floor plan, and I'll just show the blue is the commercial kitchen that Rob mentioned. And so that we've done a lot of benchmarking around the country, looking at other Boys and Girls Club and which ones are starting to adopt some of these programs, including teens programs and workforce development. So the gray area there on the right provides the back of house storage, trash, and loading space. The blue is the kitchen, along with flexible meeting and eating space. The red is a monumental stair that runs up through the middle of the building with a large elevator, so large groups of kids can get up to the upper floors. The yellow area is the game space that was mentioned, and that also includes spaces that can allow kids to learn how to make games. Coding for games is a big thing these days, and so the opportunity for a traditional game to inspire them to a career is possible here. On the other side, there's a security zone. There's a really large vestibule where parents can meet their kids. And then the gray area you see on the second floor here is the office space overlooking the entrance. Green is the gymnasium. The gymnasium will have large bay windows on it overlooking the street. It's on the second floor. The purple area is the performance space, which is a small black box theater and movement space, sometimes a variety of flexible spaces in that. The yellow is the traditional classrooms, each with about 30 to 35 students. And then the third floor, the next slide, the gold is the teen center. So it sits on its own separately from the other younger kids. And that opens up onto the small mini soccer court on the other side. So that green space there is actually open to the sky, but it's surrounded by walls and netting, so the balls can't go out into the street. There will be a small teaching garden, and on the top of the gymnasium, we're hoping to put a solar array. So if everything goes according to our plan, we can get the cost of operating this building down as low as we can. And we're looking at the well building system, which really focuses on the health of people and especially children in the building. So by the time we're done this, hopefully this will be one of the star green buildings in Mount Vernon. I think that's one more slide here. And that's just a rendering of the exterior taken from the main drag. And you can see it has sort of a chamfered corner. The area, it sort of opens up like a book, and you see the game space on the first floor, the performance space, and then the teen center on the third floor. So that's our plan, I think. Steve?
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, members of the council. Just for the record, my name is Steve Rabel. I'm with the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout. I'll keep my portion brief. I know you've got a long agenda. So I'm going to touch on some of the more boring elements here, which is if we move forward with this project that the club is very excited about, what does our process look like and what are we doing here tonight? So as I noted in my letter, this property is located in the downtown business district. Currently, the club's use is not permitted in that district. So it's anticipated that we would need to work with you all on the council toward a zoning amendment to permit the use. As we refine the plan, we might also be looking at some of the details on the dimensional requirements, the parking, that sort of thing, to make sure everything is permitted under code as we would hope it to be. But no official step is being taken tonight. We're here for a preliminary discussion to get your feedback, your thoughts and input, and to make sure that this is again, a collaborative process and that we're incorporating your thoughts as we move this forward. And then obviously on top of the zoning amendment process, there'll be a full seeker review. We'll have to go to your planning board for site plan approval. It's going to be a long, robust, and fully vetted approvals process. We think this is a great use for the downtown. We think this will be a tremendous complement to all of the hopeful residential development that's coming per your downtown vision plan. And we're excited to move this forward. So I do want to reiterate our thanks for having us on your agenda tonight so we can have this dialogue. And certainly if you have any questions for any of us or any questions about what you've seen in the presentation, we're happy to answer them or provide you with any supplemental materials you'd like.
Thank you. Council members, Councilman Thompson.
Hi, I just thank you all for coming out. I heard something about a pool. Will there be a pool in this building at all? No?
No.
Okay, and I heard solar. Solar will be in the building, correct?
We hope to have solar on top of the gym, yes.
And if this building were if this building happens to go up, what would take place of the building that's currently on Sixth Avenue? Will that still be functioning, or what would be the plan for that building?
So, yeah.
I should do the same thing. That way the public can hear you.
Our intent is we would sell the existing clubhouse. We don't have a targeted buyer yet, but we would not continue to operate it.
Okay, also, I like the concept of, what's going on with the presentation, because I know, years before I was born here in Mount Vernon, there was a Boys and Girls Club on the north and south side of Mount Vernon. And, I think it, would be beneficial, so these are some things to think about. That would be another discussion if this were to go through. I would like a discussion between you and the youth borough, because maybe the youth borough can do something with the existing building once this building is erected, if it went through. So just something to consider, but I do think this is a great project. And is this a three floor or a 4-story?
I believe it's 3 stories.
3 stories? Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Councilwoman
Thank you.
Gleason.
I have a few questions. Number one, has this property been purchased already?
Not yet.
It has not been, okay. So would the plan be for you guys to put a formal application in and then purchase, or?
Well, we're working that out, but it likely the purchase would occur prior to a formal application. Though we would want to get the council's feedback before we
Okay.
move the contract all the way
It
forward.
makes sense.
Yes.
How long of a process do you think, like, have you guys identified contractors? How long do you think it would take to build this property to the specs that you're speaking of?
If everything goes according to plan, we would finish the design for it by the end of this year and then start construction the following year in 2026. Take about 18 months to build, so 2027 for opening.
Do you see any obstruction in the area there while construction is going on? Because you have another project just about
Library Square.
20 feet away from you, and you have the library up the street, which is a
Right.
great resource for the community.
I think the courtyard provides a great opportunity for logistics for the contractor to be able to work internally to the site.
And the funding is already in place for this project?
The funding is in place for the purchase of the land. The funding for the project in its entirety is not in place. It's part of our capital campaign. We've raised substantial funds already from the board and closely related members to the board. And now we're at the phase that we've identified a parcel and we have real renderings, is when we're going to solicit, really start the capital campaign for outside the board members. But we have a consultant that has done this for 37 years. I forget how many clubs he's done, but he's done it for 37 years. And based upon what our projected costs are and our analysis of the donor base, both individuals, foundations, grants, state, federal money, we're confident we'll raise the funds to build the facility that we're showing you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Have you guys looked into any other properties within the city? Like what exactly drew you to this particular property? Because this, I mean, and I'm just gonna be completely transparent here. This is directly across the street from the train station, you know, and I would have thought another project would have gone in that space, so I'm trying to, like, was there any other parcels of land that you guys looked at, other than the Dole Center and?
Just the Dole Center, our existing property, we had, a real estate broker, who's looking for properties that met our specs. We really didn't see anything else. We saw one other one which wasn't appropriate for our use. And like I said, this sort of came to be organically in that, board member of ours used to run the bank, and apparently, from my understanding, I don't have the exact details, there was a deal with, for them to sell it to someone else, and it fell apart, and it just became an opportunity, for us.
And this will be my last question. So the Boys and Girls Club is a certified 501(c)(3), correct? When you purchase this property, do you end up paying property taxes or are you exempt from that?
We would be exempt from property taxes.
Okay, thank you so much.
But just
Go ahead.
follow on, our existing land is exempt from property taxes, and depending on how it all shakes out, there's a potential for that land to then be added to the tax rolls.
Councilman Potteet?
Turn my mic on as well. Excellent concept. We could sure use this in the downtown area, so thank you for it. Just a few questions. Mr. Campos, you had mentioned not about the building, but about the programming that you do. I'm just thinking through this. Mental health post the pandemic. Can you just talk about some of that and what's happened post pandemic? Because I've heard about that. I don't work with youth during my day job, but obviously that I'm worried and concerned about how they're doing post pandemic.
So back in March of 2020, this thing happened that I don't think any of us really knew what it was or what was happening. But I believe it was March 13th, calls, memos, emails, texts were coming that this was happening and that New Rochelle was the epicenter. Talking with my president at the time, we made the decision that we needed to close the club the next day to see what was going on. That turned into a 4-year thing. We weren't closed for 4 years. We continued to serve kids. Within 10 days of closing the club, we started what we call the virtual club. And the first day we had 6 kids show up. It was like, oh my God. But we worked where eventually we got up to 62 kids coming on. And what happened, during COVID and schools and facilities being closed, a lot of people thought, oh, they're at home. How bad could it be? But the reality was that for some of our kids, that was real bad. While we were online getting a glimpse at what was happening behind the scenes at some homes, we saw a lot of things that were disturbing. That kids really weren't safe. And I could go on, but I won't. But we saw things that needed to be addressed. And I went to our board and it was a pretty lively discussion that we needed to open our doors with the appropriate safety in place, but that our kids needed a safe place to be as we got through the pandemic. So we opened with lower numbers, and we found that in the time that kids were home, some of the social skills that we worked very hard to develop had gone away. Kids weren't interacting. And that was a challenge before COVID, but it really became a challenge during COVID. And as we got back to regular programming, we noticed that kids needed an additional support system. So we hired a mental health professional who works with kids, but not only with kids, but also is working with families, where he does group sessions with our kids, he does individual sessions with our kids, and also has incorporated families into working with kids and families. And it is making a difference. Kids are doing better in school, they're getting in less trouble. And it's an issue that has always been with us. This isn't new, but COVID made it rise to the surface. And thanks to our board of directors, because I come up with ideas all the time, and most of the time they say, well, we got no money for that. But in this one, we started it without any money. Now we have some funding for it, and it is something that's important in our community to provide mental health services with an organization they trust. Because a lot of times the outside professionals don't have the trust of our parents and don't have the trust of our kids. Our kids trust us. So they're more willing to speak with our mental health professional in our building. And it's something that we're going to continue into the new building because it's a real need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two other comments that I have briefly. One, as you build this wonderful building, just be mindful, there's a lot of great vendors in Mount Vernon that can help you. A lot of great folk here that may want to work on the site. So if you can, hire local, because that obviously helps us, but should help you as well, versus trucking someone from Nassau or Suffolk, Connecticut, or somewhere else in the county. And a point of clarification on property taxes, and I could be wrong about this, I'm wrong often. I don't think being a 501c3 on its own means that you're exempt from property taxes. And you may still have to go for a pilot, even for your new facility. Potential. Just a thought. Those are the only comments I have. Thank you, Council President.
Councilman Boxell?
I think a lot of it's already been covered. Thank you for that presentation. Yeah, that building looks exciting. It looks like a good start. I was just curious, what's the type of cost this whole project would cost, and how close are we to the funding?
This is a
Mhm.
wide range because we still are in the
Yeah.
early design phases. So I mean, obviously we don't have full construction drawings and we haven't bid it out, but if you want to use a rule of thumb, say it's roughly 42,000, say 40,000, because I can't multiply 40 by 42,000 in my head. Call it 40,000 and maybe it's, $500 a foot or something. So say it's $20 million, maybe it's $25 million, maybe it's $17 million. It depends on material and, what happens when we bid it out. So it's probably roughly in that ballpark. And I would say if it was $22 million, we have commitments right now for just under half of that.
What was the total square footage of the footprint?
42.
42.
In my math, I did it's
Okay.
40. 'Cause it's easier.
And how many parking spots did we assign for the completed project?
10.
10.
Yeah.
And that would include, and that's with the buses and such occupying half of
No,
those? Or-
no, it's 10 car spots, plus 2 separate ones for our vans. So there'd be 12 basically passenger spots. And then there'll be, the drop off with the buses.
What's the capacity in the club?
For the buses or?
No, just for occupancy, like at any given time, what's the max capacity?
I don't know what the fire department would rate it at. It might be higher, but our target is we'd want to serve about 175 to 200 kids a day. But
Okay.
remember, none of the kids are driving.
Right.
They're not. The large majority of the kids aren't of legal driving age,
Right.
or most are, not almost none are. We are working with a parking, and we will work with a parking consultant to look at the demand and
Would the staff be able to park in the 10 spots, or is that just exclusively for drop offs or such?
no, it would be for the staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just about all the spots will be occupied by staff then?
Yeah, but we don't anticipate a lot of other people driving, needing parking spots at the site, because most of it would be drop off either or walking or buses or,
Okay.
so we don't anticipate a large demand, and we're working with a consultant now to address the demand, the parking demand, to make sure it's, reasonable.
All right. That was all my questions. Thank you.
Council, give me a second, let me ask a question or two. Just out of curiosity, yeah, come back up. I was a Boys and Girls Club, member for many years, played all of my AAU basketball there. And, there was often times that my mom would drop me to practice and would need somewhere to park, or there was a game there and they would need parking to watch the game. How do you anticipate dealing with that? If, you know, there's gonna be parking, the facility is gonna require parking. So what would be your recommendation to the city for that?
I think at this point, we might not have the exact answer. Like I said, we're engaged with a parking consultant who's looked at, evaluating our current programming, what our projected programming would be, and they're gonna come back with some recommendations if the parking is appropriate, and what are some other parking options, whether that be street parking or looking at, the other parking lots that are in close proximity to the site. But I would say at this point, we don't have a complete report from the consultant, so it'd be premature to have a definitive answer of what our plan is, but we do understand that that is a potential issue, and that's why we've already started the conversations with the parking consulting firm to look at it, to provide guidance and feedback on how we would address it.
Also Councilman, Thompson asked previously about the swimming pool. It's, you guys have a blank canvas. Out of curiosity, can you tell me, did you all consider getting a swimming pool? Was it off the table from the beginning? I know a lot of people are nostalgic of the YMCA that was in that area, many years ago. And I know that will fill a gap for many. Just curious on thoughts around that.
I would say it was discussed. Most boys and girls clubs being built today, built without swimming pools for two reasons. One, they just take up a ton of real estate. This site, in the grand scheme of things, is relatively small. It's 30,000 square feet total of land. So there's not a ton of real estate to include a pool. It's costly to build, and it's very costly to maintain, and adds a level of insurance requirements and liability. So most clubs being built today are built without pools.
Got you. And one final question before I go to Councilman Gleason is, you all, the location, the site location is in one of our most dense areas, based on the downtown vision report. Have you all considered additional density, or has that been off the table?
It's been discussed, I would say, very informally. You know, it would have to go, I guess, north of us, let's say hypothetically, the clubhouse was on the lower floor, there'd something be above. I think it adds a lot of complexity to the project. We don't have the funding to pay for building above us, you know, and then lease it out. We're not gonna be able to raise that much capital. So we wouldn't be able to build a building and then partner with someone. And I think a joint ownership gets very complicated. And I think it adds it would definitely create a parking issue, if there was, you know, residential above us. So I think it adds a lot of complexity and probably a lot of time. And we understand that this parcel is in a targeted area for dense growth, but you know, we're hopeful that what we're providing is a service for the community. And you know, we know there's several other residential projects, hopefully that will come to be. And you know, we hope there's a balance of residential and people like us who are providing services, so that people who are looking to move to the downtown area have services to utilize.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gleason?
Yes, Mr. Campos, if you could come stand. Well, the one thing that you had surprised me with tonight, I thought I was pretty familiar with everything at the Boys and Girls Club, but the one thing that I was really inspired by is the fact that you guys are opening the club on Saturday nights. Can you speak a little bit more about that? And are you in need of any volunteers on Saturday
Well,
nights?
So the volunteer is with a community partner. One of the firemen of Mount Vernon approached us about renting the club on Saturday evenings. This past Saturday was the second Saturday. So part of what we do with community is that if the community has needs during non-kid hours, I'm very careful not to rent the club while the kids are there. But if you're open to renting and using the space when the kids aren't there, we will consider what's being done. And the concept of what's being done is getting teens off the street on Saturday nights. And both the first two Saturdays have been pretty popular. A lot of teens have come there. I've not yet gone on a Saturday night, but I will in the very near future. And
it's run by some of the local firefighters?
one of the firefighters in particular, his name escapes me right now, but he is a current Mount Vernon fireman.
Okay, and what time, and do you have to be a member to participate?
No, it's open to anyone who would like. We encourage those that come to become members,
Okay,
but it's not a requirement.
and what time, is that?
7 to 10 on
7
Saturday
to 10.
evening. Yes.
Okay, I would like to volunteer.
Okay.
So if you could just I know you have my cell phone number, so you could just give it to the fireman that's in charge
Mhm.
of it, and I would love to, if he's shorthanded one night, I would love to come and help out as much as I can. And my next question is for our architect and maybe the president of the club. Technically, I'm curious where the ingress and egress will be in response to the building.
So there are existing curb cuts into the existing parking lots that are almost exactly where we need them. So they're on the inside of the site, the east side of the site, and the site sort of slopes away. So it keeps the intersection and keeps the traffic going in and out away from the intersection, which we want to, obviously you don't want it too close.
Is it on first?
It's on both first and second. So it's a one-way system through the
Okay.
drop off.
Okay, and then my next question was, would you consider having more parking spaces as the first level?
There really isn't any room left on the site because we
Okay.
have the loading and the kitchen and the kids' space really there.
Okay.
It's really hard to get more.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I have.
Councilman Thompson?
I feel like you read some of my notes. No. But, I'm just wondering first, is she actually gonna volunteer to play basketball like she's been telling us, but,
Okay,
that's another story.
just to give you a little background, okay? I
We're not gonna
played
do it.
basketball in high school. There is no proof of it, and it's something that Council President Brown and I go back and forth about. So it's an ongoing joke.
But,
It's not
but
funny because I
this is-
played.
This is gonna, just an FYI, because we do have a lot of buildings in that area. We have a couple of churches, we have shelter, we have a library, we have, shopping in that area. So, parking in that area would be stressed during the day. And being that this dwelling, that you propose is 3 stories high, there is room, to build higher in that area, which possibly 4 to 5 stories given possible. I would think in your conversation as you go forward, to look into having parking within the dwelling, so you don't have to rely on parking on the streets or any of the other areas. Because when I tell you, depends on what time of day it is, it's already stressed, and it's going to be difficult for those parents who are actually going to be bringing children to any of the games or anything like that. So just look into that. Yeah, I think that's the last thing I had for that. But yeah, parking would be a major issue. So just with all the development that's gonna be coming downtown as well, I would urge you to look to have your own parking within the dwelling. That's all. Thank you.
Councilman Potteet?
One final thought that I have, and piggybacking off of what Council President Brown said, the site, we're looking at the site having density there, but it may be a win-win. Because if you build your building and don't build anything over it, you're gonna have air there that can never be used. And that air may actually have value. And if you're looking to raise about $12 million, you actually there may be a win-win situation where if you develop that property and had residential over it and had someone pay you for the air, it then can help you raise funds for the facility. If you've thought it through and it doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. But trying to be helpful, and also since we spent a couple of years on the comp plan wanting density there, it may be a win-win situation. Just a thought.
Council members, are we good? Any additional questions, comments? Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming out. I appreciate the presentation. All right, we're gonna move on to our second presentation. We're gonna go to Director Shane Brooks, Director of Sustainability.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Shane Brooks, Director of Sustainability within Public Works. Here at the request of the council to provide updates for the Climate Smart Communities Program, Clean Energy Communities Program, and the Soul Smart Technical Assistance Program. No. So Mount Vernon is currently actively engaged in 3 state-supported programs to advance sustainability, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and improve climate resilience. Those 3 programs are the Climate Smart Communities, also known as the CSC, Clean Energy Communities, known as the CEC, and Soul Smart's Technical Assistance Program, all which provide strategic pathways and funding opportunities to support these efforts. Starting with the Climate Smart Communities, the Climate Smart Communities Program is a state-sponsored program that is backed by 7 other programs guiding municipalities in reducing greenhouse gas pollution and adapting to climate impacts. Those 7 agencies are the following: the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, which leads the CSC program and provides grants, guidance, and resources for local governments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build resilience. The next is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, also known as NYSERDA, which supports clean energy initiatives, including energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. Next is the New York State Department of State, DOS. They assist with land use planning, community resilience, and local government support. The next is the New York State Department of Transportation. They focus on sustainable transportation initiatives, including pedestrian-friendly infrastructure and transit improvements. Next is the New York State Department of Health, provides expertise on public health impacts related to climate change, including heat waves, air quality, and emergency preparedness. The 6th is the New York State Public Service Commission, known as the PSC, which regulates utilities and ensures energy policies align with climate goals. Next is the New York Power Authority, NYPA, which provides support for energy efficiency, clean transportation, and municipal energy projects. To speak more to the Climate Smart Communities, technical assistance is also provided by the Hudson Valley Regional Council, which provides direct assistance to the city. I have a point person, Eleanor Peck, who's been guiding me and providing me information and informing me about additional programs that we may qualify for and that can assist us with obtaining our sustainability goals. Action requirements. Each participating city must complete mandatory and high impact actions to achieve certifications and unlock additional benefits. So basically, the more we do, the more we qualify, more doors open up for small micro grants, anywhere from $5, $10, $15, $20,000. To get certified, a community must first register by passing a municipal resolution, which we did in 2023. The CSC certification involves the completion of 2 mandatory actions, establishing a sustainability task force and appointing a coordinator to manage the program. Some communities make their CACs, which is also known as Conservation Advisory Councils or Environmental Commissions, the task force. Others create new groups, and others create new groups. Some appoint a staff member to be the coordinator, hire a new coordinator, or let a volunteer lead the charge. All can be successful. The city is in process of creating a sustainability advisory board, which will act as the climate smart task force. Why does the CAC matter for Mount Vernon? When we establish a CAC or a sustainability advisory committee, it can help advance CSC and CEC program actions. And CAC can also support initiatives like urban greening, clean energy adoption, and environmental justice efforts. It ensures that sustainability is embedded in the city planning and development decisions. Next steps for the city of Mount Vernon regarding climate smart communities is the participation in the Climate Action Plan Institute, also known as CAPI. The Climate Action Planning Institute is a facilitated collaborative working group through which a select group of local governments develop individual government operation greenhouse gas emission inventories and government operation climate action plans. Moving on to clean energy communities, also known as CEC. I served as clean energy.
Sorry, Director Brooks, just before we go on, so where are we with the task force? Like, what is the time frame? What is the next grant?
Task force, so right now, I believe on this Wednesday meeting's agenda is to establish a list for sustainability consultants. And that consultant would be coming on board, whoever's chosen on a project basis. And they will help develop the whole framework, assist me in developing the whole framework of creating the committee. If you recall how long it took to create the tree advisory board, it took years for that. And that was before I was in this position. The 2 that will be a part of the list, if accepted and approved by your body, they have extensive experience in creating these committees. So it's from creating the application, doing the advertisement, doing the interviews, doing the bylaws. And how I plan to, I guess, create this board is that it's just not gonna be just because I know you. Like, I need a support. As you know, I'm the director of sustainability. I do have support within my department and other departments, but I don't have no in between. It's coming directly to me, all things sustainability. So I'm dealing with, for instance, trying to plan Earth Day, but also trying to go for a multi-million-dollar grant, also answering to tree complaints, also answering to tree requests where people, hey, can I get a tree planted in front of my house? So I have no buffer, and I need a safety net for support so I can get some sort of guidance and support to move these initiatives forward.
And I understand you need support, but the creation of the committee, other municipalities have just used employees that are inside, right? You don't need a consultant to help you create the committee, right? So for example, Hastings on Hudson, very well versed in this program. They've created this program with, the coordinator being their sustainability person. And then they've filled in other people such as the DPW commissioner or, the planning commissioner. Why do you need a consultant to assist in that committee development? I guess is what I'm trying to figure out.
So when it comes to speaking to other communities who are very progressive in sustainability, it's hard to compare Mount Vernon to Hastings on the Hudson. It's hard to compare Mount Vernon to Bedford. It's hard to compare Mount Vernon to those cities where their CAC or their task force is made up of retired volunteers who want to be involved.
No, I don't think you understood me. I'm saying that their CAC is made up of current city employees, not retired volunteers.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out why we can't follow a similar step as opposed to paying a consultant to help us identify who we want on the committee.
Well, it's not going to identify, they're going to help us do the framework, the application, all the things that are needed to get those people on board. We will have an internal team to vet who we're bringing on. The consultant won't be a part of that phase. It's just the creation of the framework, the application, the advertisement, and all that other stuff. As you know, we are spread thin. This is not just, hey, I'll join and I'll just be a part of it just to be a part of it. Whoever's a part of it is gonna have to do work.
I'll let you continue.
Mm-hmm. Any other?
No.
Okay. Clean energy communities. NYSERDA's Clean Energy Leadership Program provides grants and technical support for cities that compete high impact clean energy action items. So far, we've completed a few action items. Mount Vernon has secured a CEC designation grant of $5,000. That's for completing 4 completed action items. Additional grant funding includes $15,000 for clean heating and cooling, for a clean heating and cooling campaign, and another $15,000 for achieving a 1-star designation, which includes the fact that we have a designation of being a disadvantaged community. That's what they call a bonus. Previous funding was used for energy efficiency studies for 3 municipal buildings, the Dole Center, City Hall, and the police court complex. The most recent grant in the amount of $15,000 will be put aside and will support will go towards the purchase of the city's first fully electric vehicle for city use. And that's being put aside due to, we have no infrastructure in place yet, EV infrastructure.
Madam President?
Councilwoman Gleason?
So when you say that money is just gonna be put aside, am I concerned about having 100% electric vehicles in our DPW or with the city different departments? Is when I speak to the mechanics, like how are we gonna start integrating the mechanics into that? Like the mechanics that are at DPW and the training for them needed to support these
That's an
electric cars?
ongoing conversation.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not there yet.
No.
Okay, thanks.
We are currently leveraging overlapping program actions between CSC and CEC. So what that means is that some programs in the CSC will benefit CEC and vice versa. To maximize funding and streamlining progress, which will contribute to a more resilient and energy efficiency city infrastructure. Speaking to this CAPI, the Climate Action Planning Institute, this is a 16 to 18 month program, which the county received, I believe, $150,000 to assist 9 municipalities, which we are one, in the creation of a greenhouse gas emissions inventory and a climate action plan. The Climate Action Planning Institute is to develop a municipal climate action plan. Starting this year, we will be participating in Westchester County's and Hudson Valley Regional Council's Climate Action Planning Institute, a facilitated collaborative working group which a select group of local governments develop individual operations, greenhouse gas emissions, inventories, and government operation climate action plans. The Westchester CAPI program has been funded in part by the Climate Smart Communities grant program through a grant to Westchester County. We will also continue pursuing CEC and CSC high impact actions to unlock additional funding and benefits.
So what are the actions that we're going after? Like, what is next up for the actions?
The
that we
next
can
step
do
is
and
to,
knock off?
the next step is to create this sustainability task force. That's considered a big action item, but there's other small action items that we can look into. For instance, before I even became familiar of what was done as I started this position, just the fact that we redid our streetlights to Cobra heads and decorative streetlights. That was something that was just, we've done, but we didn't submit it to the right organizations for small grants or credit for it being done. And that's just something I found. So the other smaller action items is doing small upgrades to our facilities, whether we have, we install smart controls. I know there's a huge, the capital improvement program, which will address all of our government ran facilities. Once smart controls and things like that are implemented in that, we'll get additional points, which will open up additional funding.
Okay, so what I'm really looking for is, the reason why I brought you in for about these two programs, and the next one, I'm assuming you're gonna talk about Soul Smart shortly, but is there's money on the table that Mount Vernon isn't bringing in, and it's partly because we haven't been moving forward with any of these actions. So do we have an ETA on when we can get some of the actions completed so that we can be eligible for grant money to come into the city?
Yes, I can provide that additional information to you.
It'd be helpful.
Mm.
You can continue.
Next slide. Soul Smart is a national designation program that recognizes and supports local governments in making it faster, easier, and more affordable to install solar energy in their communities. Funded by the U.S. Department of Energy, Soul Smart provides a no-cost technical assistance to help municipalities and counties streamline permitting, zoning, and other processes that encourage solar development. The key benefits. So Soul Smart is the agency, I believe, Council President Brown brought forth and made us aware of it. Soul Smart helped us extensively with the adoption of the Unified Solar Permit application. Not only that, but all the what could I say? All the proper language for the policy. They helped us with the back and forth with the law department just to make sure everything was right. And currently it's been working. We still have some things to get better, but it's working. It's better. Excuse me. Some of the key benefits of Soul Smart, it reduces barriers to solar adoption by improving local policies and the permitting process. Like I just said, the Unified Solar Permit application is a one-page double-sided document compared to how we did the work previously. It was multiple steps that caused bottlenecks in approvals and reviews and things like that. It enhances economic development by attracting solar businesses and investment, supports clean energy goals, and helps communities meet sustainability commitments. Soul Smart, coupled with the previous two programs, these three programs together benefit each other. So one, for example, something that's completed in Soul Smart may may benefit climate smart communities or clean energy communities. It also can help attract state and federal funding for clean energy projects, also encourage equitable access to solar for residents and businesses. Lastly, we are making significant strides in climate leadership, leveraging state programs to modernize city operations, reduce carbon emissions, and enhance community resilience. Our continued participation will position us for greater funding opportunities and long-term environmental and economic benefits.
Thank you, Director Brooks. Just for Soul Smart, right? The reason I wanted an update on that is they have different tiers. And part of it is they assisted us with the solar panels, but we've been getting a lot of complaints recently about people unfamiliar with the process. There seems to be some confusion. And I remember from one of our initial meetings, one of the steps to get into the bronze designation, I believe, was to have information on the website that clarifies the process. So was hoping to hear, when we can get to some of those next steps, when we can move up in designation. But if you can provide that information at a later point, that'd be,
I can do that.
that'd be helpful.
Cool.
Council members?
Yeah, so I had a question and it was sparked by Council President Brown. When it comes to the two consultants, okay, going out for a request for qualifications, okay, is that limiting us to using just them? Like, how did they, I don't think there were very many people that put.
No, only 3.
Yeah, only 3.
Yeah,
And then you chose 2, right?
yes.
You chose 2. Okay, so how does the procurement policy, how do you follow the procurement policy after going out for a request for qualifications? How are you able to meet?
So
those
address
needs?
what you, I think you were, I'm about to say, are we locked into those 2? No, we're not locked into those 2. We can go back out for,
Well, I think you have to though, right?
no, we don't have to.
With the procurement policy, wouldn't you still have to get 3 quotes?
The procurement policy still stands, no matter if you
Well,
have.
yeah, but we don't have to use those 2
Right, I just
companies.
want to make sure because this was one of the reasons why we held it at the last meeting,
Mhm.
is that we're still going to be following the procurement policy. Getting the 3 quotes and stuff like that, even though you've identified that those are qualified individuals, that we still maintain the structure of the
Correct.
procurement policy. Okay, thank you.
All right, I think, Councilman Box Hill?
With the transition of new federal administration, has any of the rules changed, or do you anticipate, or there's any talk of that will maybe change the way we do things in the city or affect the way you do?
Well, that's still fresh. I'll give you an example. I sent an email for a status update regarding our EECDBG grant, which is about $128,000. And they said, we can't provide you an update at this moment. We are waiting for our update. So there's a lot of programs that are on pause right now. Not too sure how long. I'll continue to inquire on a weekly, bi-weekly basis to see if any updates are available.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Director Brooks.
Thank
for coming in.
Great presentation, by the way.
Did you have, is Con Ed a part of your presentation?
Oh, yes.
Forgot about them. Con Ed.
Wait, cool. The other presentation that you had was the one. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you and good evening again. We're getting close. I think we first came here April 2023, and there's a lot of familiar faces. I think we said back then that get used to our faces are going to keep coming. We kept the team strong. So we appreciate the opportunity to come back and kind of give a few updates on a more regular basis now as we progress along the project. You can go right to the next slide. We can skip the agenda, save some time. Yeah, you can skip it. So quick update, a few updates I want to give tonight. Some of them on design aspects and a quick update on an incident that happened over at the fire station that you may or may not be aware of. We'll get into tonight. But we've been kind of regularly communicating it out to some of the different commissioners and the mayor directly. So first of all, the biggest change or enhancement to the design is just the number of bore fields that we believe are going to be required for this project. So as we started kind of adding up all the load and how much heat everybody's going to use and cooling, our engineers are kind of putting it all into their model and realizing that we probably need some additional, either additional bore fields or some changes to the existing bore fields. So the biggest change probably is over at the Dole Center. So there is, I spoke about it once here. There's an outside group that's looking to potentially develop the space over the green area of the Dole Center. And when we look at that in our project, they really can't fit in the same place, right? When we put our boreholes in the ground, we typically go down 4 or 5 feet where we start and then go down from there. That facility is looking at putting a recessed basketball court that goes down a story or two. It's just the coordination effort to do that doesn't make a lot of sense, doesn't really add a lot of value, just adds complexity and expense to probably both projects, which at the end of the day becomes an expense to, our customers, right? So we looked at, the alternative is right across the street. So in a good story here, we can talk about more later. That's not going to focus up tonight, but on the 4th Street basketball court area, there's also a project there looking to redevelop that. And we've been working closely with that, New Park City, I think they're called.
Yeah.
All right. And so we had a couple good collaborative meetings, with our teams, their teams, and we think that we could actually make these projects work together. We can potentially design our boreholes in the ground first. They do their project and we kind of stay out of each other's way and really make that, a really good space. Part of that whole project is about kind of sustainability and recapturing rainwater, and the ability to kind of tie it into this clean energy project makes a lot of sense. So we've transitioned that borehole over to that area on 4th Street. And in addition to that, there's some financial benefit because whatever area we put bore field on, we restore back, a nice finished area. So for instance, there's an opportunity there where we could maybe pick up the cost of resurfacing those basketball courts and take it off that project, right? So there's an opportunity to kind of gain value. The other areas that we originally spoke about was the other basketball court over on South 9th, Purdy Park. So that's still there. Nothing really changes too much there. We're kind of looking at that area. And potentially the other area is a small playground owned by the city of Mount Vernon property over on 7th. And that's a small playground. If we were to use that playground, we would put all new playground equipment on there when we're done. We're not put it all back, but we'd replace it, with new like in kind, right? I mean, whatever facilities are there. I think it's like swing sets and some playgrounds. It's not a lot there, but we would put back, new equipment there to replace it. We will make it, better and newer. I mean, in reasonable to what, what could be there, right? But we can work with the city on what that would look like if that's a bore field that we decide we need. And finally, the other part that is different here that and probably maybe somewhat impactful would be the parking lot area behind the Dole Center, right? So there's city Mount Vernon parking lot behind the Dole Center. That's an area that, again, when we're done, it would still be a parking lot, but during construction there, we'd have to work together to phase it in areas. So there's still some parking and we don't take out the whole parking lot. And that could be done in phases. You can do one half side, do the work, finish it, pave it over, then swap over to the other side. So we're finalizing the design right now. We've conducted a whole bunch. We've been into about 50 buildings that the building owners let us inside. We spoke to them, do an assessment of the buildings. And we're kind of currently getting that first phase of the project identified right now. So maybe it's going to be about 30 1 to 4 family homes, different areas with the Ebony Gardens, Centennial Homes, the medical office building. We're trying to finalize what that first phase looks like right now. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to really know exactly what those buildings are. But we're only planning on including right now of the first phase, buildings that customers actually let us into their buildings and homes. So we can really know what the design looks like. At that point, we'll be able to refinalize how many bore fields we do need. But since we know that we're targeting the city of Mount Vernon owned properties, bore fields, now we'll figure to share with you all. So it's not a surprise later. We're putting priority to those bore fields. We want to bring value back to the city. We can go ahead and restore and get a new playground or a new basketball court. Makes a lot of sense as opposed to, putting it into potentially just a single property that doesn't really benefit the community. Okay. Next slide. Next slide. So this is where they are. Those are the 4 I'm talking about here. It gets for reference here. I already spoke about those 4 areas, but it's a quick little snapshot of kind of where they are and what they look like, the different playgrounds, basketball courts that are there. So you can go right to the next slide. You can go back quick 1 second. There are 2 properties that we are looking at, just to kind of be open about it. One of them is the medical office building. So because it's a large commercial building that has lots of load, if they choose to connect to the project, they bring with them the need for lots of boreholes, right? That's kind of how it works, right? The bigger buildings need the more boreholes. So we're working with that building. We're going to be coming to them soon with a proposal to say if they want to join, yes, we'll continue to pay for the upgrades, but we're going to need to put boreholes on their property to support the load. If they don't come on board, then we don't need those boreholes, right? That's kind of how it works with the big buildings. So same thing with the with Macedonia Church. Not that that church needs all those boreholes, but they do have a good amount of property there of their parking lot. So we'd probably be approaching them and maybe St. Paul Clement Church. Those are the churches in the area that have some bore fields, some space that can put bore fields on. So that's just the only properties we're looking at right now, potentially that are not City of Mount Vernon properties for bore fields. Okay, you go next slide. So part of the design we spoke about here a few months ago was the new energy center building. And in doing the design for that building, we had some quick renderings, was doing geotech boring. So basically you bore down about 40 feet, understand the soil composition, because depending how that soil is, determines how you build that foundation, right? The structure of the foundation. In doing this work, we had our design vendor, CDM Smith, and they had a subcontractor, ADT, which was the driller, that started drilling these boreholes. Before they drilled the boreholes, they do markouts. They mark out the area called 811, got the markouts for all the utilities that are public. In doing so, what was after they did 2 boreholes, and when they started working on the 3rd borehole, exactly where you see that drill rig right there, they had actually made contact with the unmarked underground oil tank to the fire station. So we found out about it, and I'll get to the time after. So basically, it made contact with the tank, with the side. If the tank is like round like this, it kind of like grazed the side of it. They didn't go like through it. There was no actual spillage of any oil from the incident at all. Once it hit the tank, they stopped. We got a phone call. Con Ed was notified about that there was an issue with the heating of the fire station on Sunday afternoon. We immediately mobilized our teams. You can go to the next slide here, actually. Before I go that far. So that's, I forgot I had this picture in there. So right where that drill is, if you look right in that picture, I'm going to point to it. Impact of the tank is like this side of the hole, side of the tank. You can go to the next picture. So we notified on it on Sunday the 12th. It was apparent at that time that the last time any activity was being done was that Friday afternoon, the 10th. So once we were mobilized, we kind of got the teams together right away, kind of went nonstop calls from like 1:30 afternoon straight to the morning. At 9 a.m. in the morning, we had a field meeting with I believe the fire commissioner was there and a couple other city officials. We had all of the entities involved mobilized that morning, figure out what's going on. We work closely with the vendor that does the oil for the fire station, which is East Coast Petro. We got out there. We quickly worked with them to get the fire station back on a temporary tank. So by that Monday afternoon, they were back. Heating was back on through a temporary tank, kind of expedited process. And then we started excavating the tank. That tank is buried 7 feet deep. So when they do the borer techings, they do dig by hand to clear the way. So they went down 5 feet by hand. There was nothing found there, but that tank was actually 7 feet down, which is why it wasn't found during the hand dig excavation part. Again, we work closely. What you see there is the actual excavation pit. It was deep hole. We had to go down 7 feet, sheeting and shoring, a full project. Crews maintained a presence on site, excavating the whole way through. And they excavated it by the 17th. So in only 4 or 5 days, Con Ed was on it the entire time. We were there, crews on location, our HNS on location to ensure that there was no issue, any spill, and make sure that everything's kind of going well with the restoration. The goal here was to understand the extent of the damage and then understand, proposing to the city of Mount Vernon, what remedy we want to do. And we're kind of at that stage now. The first thoughts here, just in general, if you damage anything, right? Just keep it very basic. Can you fix it? If you can't fix it, you got to replace it. Or should it be fixed or should it not be fixed? I mean, that's in the most basic ways. This was a older tank. It was original to the building. So it's about 40-plus-year-old tank, single wall. They don't make them like that anymore. They kind of have more protections now. So it's not recommended by the Westchester County to even replace it. We had just the vendor, East Coast Petro, had filed for application to clean it and or repair it. Under counsel from Westchester County, they decided that they weren't going to issue a permit to repair it. Personally, I wouldn't recommend probably repairing that tank, and I don't think you would have recommended it either. The best thing to do is probably to replace that tank. So right now, if you go to the next slide, our engineering firm is kind of putting together a memo we'll have ready for the city of Mount Vernon very soon on the options. Pretty much going to be, do you want to replace it with a brand new above ground tank, or do you want to replace it with a new berry tank? It's up to you. Yeah,
I actually don't think we're allowed to put it back in the ground.
I you may not be able to do it
I don't
according to
think
code,
so.
and I don't recommend probably doing it either, because when we do this process for that the energy center building there, we're gonna have to remove it anyway. So it probably makes sense to do above ground, but we're happy to appease any solution that the city of Mount Vernon wants to do. And that's, on behalf of, our vendors, dime, our dime, we take responsibility, Con Ed, and so at no cost to the city that a new tank will be put in place. And then also the cost for the temporary tank that will likely be billed to some point to city of Mount Vernon, because we don't have a contract with East Coast Petrol. You could just send it over to Con Ed, and, we'll make sure that our vendor kind of takes care of that bill expeditiously for the temporary tank that was put up there.
Please note the time that was said.
You could know, I mean, it's not a question, right? We hit something of yours, and we gotta fix it. I mean, I said that from day one on this project, right? We're here, we're not going away, so we need to make this partnership work, and it just makes sense. So the other part we're gonna do is we didn't finish the work we were originally doing there, which was boring, to get the design of the building. So we are planning to resume that work now that we've kind of established where we are with it. There's no more excavation being done there. It's safe where it is. The temporary tank is in place. The fire station has heat. There's no more activity there. So we do want to finish the other remaining borings so we can complete the design, so we can get this project approved over to the PSC, right? 'Cause our deadline is July 9th. So we really can't progress that design until we resume there. So we should be resuming shortly and be able to complete that work there. And then we'll work with the county to get the permits to whatever solution City of Mount Vernon selects for above ground or below ground. That permitting could take a long time, which is not under your control or our control. We don't want to lose the opportunity to get this project because of the Westchester permitting. So we want to continue the work design there, and then we'll continue staying with the project until it's fully completed to the liking of City of Mount Vernon. Okay, next slide. I don't have much left. I just want to give a quick update where we are. We had a lot of canvassing. I mean, we were out there, there's a picture on the left on a Saturday. It was like 24 degrees. We had the whole team out there on a kind of last push, and we got into a lot of buildings, talked to a lot of customers, a lot of them on the spot. I'll tell a story. I mean, Christina is here. You can raise your hand, Christina. I talked about getting somebody dedicated to Mount Vernon. That's Christina. I'll just tell you a quick story. I mean, we on one of the first days, and Shane was there too. There was a resident that was like, I don't know what the word is. He was angry. He was disgruntled. He was yelling and cursing at us for like really no reason. It was pretty, I mean, no, I've seen a lot of angry people in 20 years of Con Ed. This was up there. But we were good. Actually, Shane was with us that day, right? And we were all professional about it. And we knew where this person kind of lived, right? Because it's in the Cavings area that we go. And, we were back out there that day, and that same individual, kind of came out of their home and just kind of started again, right? Like, not as angry, but kind of angry. And, Christina did a great job and listened to them for about 15, 20 minutes venting, got to the root of his anger. Turns out it was nothing to do with our project. It was about, a cooking gas service that for whatever reason was not in service because of whatever reason you want to do. She worked with him on that Saturday. She promised him to get back to him on that Saturday. She got back to him by Saturday night. And by Sunday, he had that gas turned back on, and he was thanking her and sending her like praise. And this is the person that was like saying really angry, profane language. That same person sent a thank you email. I mean, so that's the type of thing that we want to bring to the community in this project. Those are the stories that we want to keep building. Nothing to do with our project, but it's an angry customer in an area that we care about. And that's just a good example of kind of what we've been doing out there. Last slide, I think, one more slide. And again, that's just an update. Like, we're continuing to send the emails and postcards. Our canvassing for first round is completed now. So the buildings that we got into, those are the ones we're going to design towards. And then, but there'll be other opportunities to join once we get this project approved, right? 'Cause even though we went to your building, maybe you don't want to do it now. Maybe it's a different owner. We can bring somebody else in. So that's kind of where we are. I just wanted to give a little update, open for questions and comments. I know we had the event that was supposed to happen last week on the workforce side. It's going to be rescheduled for, I believe. So we're ready to be there. We already paid for the restaurant, so we should hopefully we'll have it. We're hoping to get it rescheduled whenever the city would like, and we're ready to go.
Councilman Potteet?
Thank you, Con Ed, for coming back and touching base with us. There's two questions that I have. First, to understand better the boring holes, because I don't quite get how much land that each hole
Yeah.
takes.
So
Is it 5 square feet? Is it
No,
500
so-
square feet? Exactly, if you go on the Fourth Street playground, let's say.
Oh, the big boards. Yeah, so the boards are they're about 6 inches, 6, 7 inches in diameter. So they're about this big in diameter. And we'll space them about 15, 20 feet apart from each other. And we'd look to take up the majority of the space we could take up, because that's like a battery, right? The more you have, the more customers you can bring on. But once you're done with them, then we would dig down a few feet. So you dig down 3, 4 feet. That's when you start drilling them down. And then you have piping that connects each one. So they kind of connect the grid together. But when you're done, you restore the dirt back over it and you can't tell that they're there. So there's nothing showing when you're done. When you're done, there could be boreholes under here, you wouldn't know. That help?
It does, but I'm more curious about how much land would you take to actually make those boreholes? Because if we're planning work on the Fourth Street playground, and let's say it takes a tractor to come on site or tractors, you may take up half of the playground drilling those holes, just so we can understand how much time
Yeah.
it's gonna be off.
Okay, I understand the question now. For construction, yeah. So a lot of it could be done in phasing. Typically for like a lot that big, we can do it in 2 phases. So if we wanted to keep half of it open or half not, we could also try to phase the season. So maybe be there for a few months, maybe be there in the colder months that the playground's less active. We'd work with the city to kind of schedule our bore fields around makes the most amount of time. Is there disturbance during the construction? There's gonna be. And do you really want somebody playing right next to construction activity?
Right.
Even if we phase it, no. Parking is one thing if you want to do a private parking lot, but you probably don't want to open basketball court next to a construction site, even if it's fenced off. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But we could work together when that scheduling comes after the project's approved to do what's best, right? We have some flexibility. We have a few boreholes, and that's kind of standard for every project, kind of working with the stakeholders to make sure what makes the most sense.
Because I would want to make sure, like, here's the worst case situation. You start in May. And you're saying, okay, and also what's the time frame for drilling all those holes? Is it a month, a week, a couple months?
So you typically can go through a ballpark, maybe like a hole a day, right? So if you're gonna put it depends. If you're gonna put 70 holes there, then that alone is like 70 days, right? 70 working days. So it depends how big the bore field is, depends how long it takes. So it could be a few months. I would say on that land, if I had to guess now, I say we'd probably be out in there for 2 to 4 months, but it could be something like that. It could be like the entirety of what you're looking at, which could be this that. I would recommend not doing probably May. That'd be the worst time to do it. I would recommend doing that you're going into the winter to sort of freed up by the spring or going late fall into the winter.
Right, so that's exactly my point, is that we want to make sure as you're doing this work, and it's great that you're gonna repave the Fourth Street playground. But if you start in May, let's say, and then you wouldn't do that, but if you started in May, you take up the whole summer, now the summer's shot, because no one can use it while you're drilling those
Right.
holes. So I would want to make sure that you come back once you're ready and give us that schedule, really week by week. It's okay, on week 45, we're gonna start drilling these holes and they'll be done by week 10 of the following year. When do you think that you'll start? Do you have a quarter as to when you're gonna
Yeah.
start?
That's where it kind of comes to play, right? So we're gonna submit our final design to the Public Service Commission this July 9th. We don't expect the PSC to have an answer if this project's approved or not till probably January or February of next year. So we're not gonna know if this project's approved until about a year from now. Then at that point, then we have to sign up a certain amount of customers where we're gonna break ground. So honestly, I'm not having that answer. The good news is that we have parking lots, we have basketball court. So we can do the parking lot during the season with basketball court, right? And have the inconvenience of the parking, which is not seasonal, to balance the seasonal impact of the basketball court. So there's flexibility, but I'm not gonna have an answer probably until middle of next year when we know, where we are with the project.
So we should note, because there may be, different people sitting here in a year, that you wouldn't start on the playground until the fourth quarter of 26.
We wouldn't
Right?
start.
Because.
Oh,
if you
yeah,
think it's
we're
early-
not gonna, we're not, there's no way, we're not gonna say, that's probably fair for any of the work. By the time we get the contractors going, it'll probably be middle of 2026 anyway. So we wouldn't start. We're not gonna do things that don't make sense. That, I mean, I don't know, I'll put it that way. I mean, hopefully we built the trust here in the last 2 years that we're not gonna do things that don't make any sense. And that wouldn't make sense to do that, if it's anywhere avoidable. There's gonna be some impact that's unavoidable. And I want to make it clear that the building of these systems takes a little time and takes a little space. When you're done, you don't see it, which is the beauty of these systems. But the construction of it, there's gonna be some construction impact, right? We got a taste for it by the Dole Center, right? That's kind of what it's gonna look and feel like. That was one hole. Well,
Right.
the fencing was there longer than the one hole, but that's kind of the feel for it.
And then my second comment, talking about what happened with that underground tank. So the underground tank got hit. There wasn't any damage to the tank. Why did the heat go out?
No, there was damage to the tank. So when the
was
tank got hit, it's okay, you don't have to go back, don't worry. So when they drill, that drill it drills with water, like it's water assisted drilling. So there's like running water that kind of goes with the drill. The way that tank works, the suction line, the line that goes from the tank to the boiler itself is a suction line, like, so it has to suck up. So it sucks it from the bottom of the tank. So because it hit the top of the tank, water went into the tank, then you have like the old science experiments that we do with our kids, like the oil goes to the top, water goes to the bottom. So instead of sucking the oil, it sucked the water got into the boiler, it tripped the boiler. But when petrol got there, they look at the tank and there's muddy water coming in. They go, wait a second, why is there water in the line? They looked outside, there's a drill rig. They called somebody, they called Shane called me, I called my people. I said, what did you do? It's kind of how it went.
So then just the thought that you're asking what we would want back. Again, I'm 1 out of 5 council members, right? So, but my thought is you could come back with gas, right? Coming back with something cleaner than oil, we never have to deal about that. We never have to think through. Do you put the tank underground? Do you put it above ground and then take up land? You could actually give us gas, put a converter on the boiler, and now we have cleaner energy and we never have to worry about oil spillage again, since you're asking.
We're open. I'm not open to it. The challenge becomes in our approval for this project, right? So that building is slated to be fully electrified by our project. We're converting the fire station completely off any fossil fuel and putting them onto the network. So for us to go ahead and convert them to gas as part of the project to electrify them, it could be perceived negatively by external stakeholders, not the city of Mount Vernon and the Public Service Commission, while we're converting a building to gas, only to reconvert them to electric as part of the project. We were removing the oil tank as part of the project, right? That fire station was gonna get all new HVAC equipment to be, heat pump electrified, driven by our system.
When? What year?
The first year, I mean, if the project gets approved.
Right, so you won't get a sign off until the middle of 26. You weren't gonna start the work the third quarter of 26 if you're lucky. Right. So we're in the first quarter of 25, so it's a year and a half that something needs to happen. That's not a short time.
We could definitely, so again, if preferred to go through try and get new gas service, there's gas in the area. I'm not
Right.
like, not against it. It's, we could look at it, and if that's what the city wants to do. Again, my only concern is that the look to the deciding people of this project of why are we converting to gas and creating a new gas customer in a project meant to decarbonize. That's my only hesitation. That doesn't make a difference to Con Ed, but may impact like the Public Service Commission and those stakeholders.
But
Okay.
better than us trying to figure out if there was really oil that spilled out of that underground.
No, we're gonna take the tank out. We will know. We're gonna pay to remove the tank and clean up any oil that's there. So that's gonna happen regardless. So, yep.
For sure.
Yeah, we're not leaving the old tank there, that's.
Councilman Boxell?
Yeah, thank you for the update. I guess, it's similar to what, Councilman Pucci touched on, with the drilling. I guess back to our prior meetings, I kept asking the same question. I think we even held up a meeting of potential hazards of the drilling, and, we were sure that, this is 100% safe. I guess one of the potential hazard is you might hit something when you drill, and I'm just curious of how something like this happened. Don't we know the exact location of the tank? And also, God forbid, what would have happened if we went straight through that? Like, what type of cleanup would that require?
So, okay, I'll do the second part first. We treated the situation, with the assumption that there was an oil leak. We already gave pre-notification to the state, our own company. We're fortunate that there wasn't, but what would have happened, we would have cleaned up, all the oil, right? With that type of tank in the oil, those tanks do leak sometimes, oftentimes the older tanks, and, typically the contamination of the oil from those tanks is kind of relatively stationary to the area of the tank or under the tank, just by the nature of the type of oil that goes into those tanks. We would have fully remediated it, and we're probably gonna have to remediate it, whatever's there. More than likely, the bottom of the tank is probably not, it was probably having some sort of, misperfections at the bottom of a 45-year-old single wall steel tank. And when we remove that tank, we're gonna have to clean up the soil that's under there. Whether it did or didn't, that's just kind of where the nature is. Now, in any drilling, yeah, marking out the areas and facilities is very important. Some facilities are called in the 811 mark out when you call New York State: water, sewer, Con Ed, telephone, right? When you got on private property, not everything is easy. They don't participate in the program, most likely, and then they can be marked out. Could there have been extra precaution there? Yeah, that's why we take responsibility for this, right? To our engineers, right? There was an oil fill not too far from where they were drilling. If they didn't get the information to verify the location of the tank, it was, our expectation for our engineers to go ahead and get that information, right? Whether from the city, the fire department. They follow the procedures to dig down by hand 5 feet before they put the drill inside? They did, but there's still things that could be done better, and we think there that, regardless, could more caution always be taken? Yeah, I mean, the tank was there underground. There were no real records of where that tank was exactly, the orientation of the tank, exactly where it was. We knew it was in the area for sure. But that's why we have, people on site when it happens and could respond to it. Obviously, the better records we have of facilities in the ground, but sometimes there's facilities in the ground that there's no records of, and they're not marked out. And, the important thing is that, we're there with them and they're responding to it and being able to rectify anything that could happen.
Also with 4th Street, I'm not sure if the design is finalized on what the plans are for the rehab of 4th Street. I don't know, they might be adding structure, bleachers. I'm not sure. How does that affect if they, what you're doing as far as how deep you want to dig and maybe even adding something to the park later on?
Yeah, so we're working directly with that project team, the designers, the architects of what they're designing. So we have their latest plans they share with us, and we have with them. It's more about phasing when the work gets done. So their schedule and our schedule seem to be aligning where we can go in and put the boreholes in before they do their work. But before they do any finishing of the work, if they even wanted to start some of the rain treatment work, the sewers, the catch basin work, they can do all that work because their work's gonna be all on the perimeter of the park to that rain water prevent catching area. Our work's gonna be limited in the middle of the park. So the only last thing they would not do, unless in case things got delayed, they went forward fast, is the actual finishing of the court itself. And that's where they would hold off until we go there. And if we couldn't hold off till we go there, let's say we would still, then we would just restore it to what it was in the worst case scenario that our project gets delayed several years and their project goes forward. We're avoiding any of the infrastructure they're building in for the rain collection, which is a big part of what that project is outside of just finishing the court. We're avoiding some of the trees and shrubbery. They're kind of working around us so they don't put trees and shrubbery, and any trees they're going to put in that they don't have deep roots, so it wouldn't impact our system. So we couldn't work any closer with them. I mean, we're working directly with them, which is nice. I mean, they're super excited about it, to be honest. This is a good marriage for this type of project, because we're doing right below them, and it only brings to the appeal of the park and that project.
All right, thank you for that. That's all I had, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Councilman Potteet?
Again, because other people may be sitting here within a year. The scenario that happened is one that could happen again, and no one's fault. If someone in their backyard, in a playground, there's an underground tank, there's a utility line that's not marked. Again, no one's fault. You start drilling, you damage a line, and we're going to multiple parts in that area with older buildings that were built in the 50s where no one thought about this. This situation could happen quite a bit. I've heard from residents, and again, not that Con Ed would be doing this, but the reason why they've chosen Mount Vernon is to say, they may not be able to put in the right protections if something happens versus a New Rochelle or a White Plains or a Bronxville. So then it's better for Con Ed to go to Mount Vernon so that if something happens, we as a city may not be so quick to fight you versus other places. The reason that I'm bringing all this up
Yeah.
is a good hedge, and I want to go on record saying this, is we got to triple check the insurances that Con Ed's giving us, right? Because versus a lawsuit that we may or may not win or may be dragged out, we should be able to quickly say damage was caused. Again, not that Con Ed's a bad character, but we got to fix this quickly without dragging this out. So some that I would love, again, one of 5 council members, some sort of a bond line of credit, or for someone that has expertise to look at the insurances that Con Ed's giving us, so that if this happens a second time, we're not trying to figure out whose fault it is. We're literally tapping the bond, we're tapping the insurances to remedy what happened, and then we can discuss later
Yeah,
whose fault.
there's no question of fault there, right? Con Ed, we're taking liability that something was damaged that wasn't damaged when we got there. There's not a question. I'm telling you, file the claim for the petrol, and, you know, we will ensure that our vendor, and if not our vendor, then Con Ed will back, well, is covering all costs. We're not asking for any costs for the city of Mount Vernon. And then the first comment, and I'm sorry, I'm going to answer the first comment, 'cause it was kind of direct, if it's
I
okay.
just want to,
Yeah.
I mean,
Continue
Oh,
first.
on the first comment, there is no difference the way Con Ed is, and I know that wasn't your views or opinions, that was views or opinions that you heard, and it took me a little bit to realize that you were talking about why Con Ed chose this project, is what you meant, right? There's no difference of how we treat any of our customers in Con Ed. I mean, whether it's, we have projects in the most like expensive parts of Manhattan, nor any parts of, you know, areas, whether it's Westchester County or the outer boroughs. It's the same. We treat the project the same, and this incident is treated exactly the same way. An incident happens, and sometimes it could be at no fault or it could be at fault. Either way, if Con Ed, our company personnel or contractors make any damage to any property that wasn't damaged before we got there, because in construction activities, these things do happen. And that's just the reality of construction. The difference between Con Ed is that we always kind of own it, right? And from day one, you know, we're out there, and I've been updating. I haven't emailed the mayor once about this project. I've been updating her every couple of days directly in email with this, because she's on the email chain. We will be there, whether it was Mount Vernon or whether it was Yonkers or whoever it could be. So I guess I'll speak to just my response to those thoughts is that it has nothing to do with why this project came here. Yeah, sorry.
Councilwoman Luther?
I just wanted to say, you supplied liability insurance to the city as a co-insured, correct? You had to have supplied, to dig on our property, you had to have given us an insurance certificate. All right, just look
You
into
can
that.
follow up on that.
If anything, that could, I mean, instead of putting a bond, a bid bond
Yeah.
in place, you just
mean,
get an
so-
insurance certificate to have us co-insured.
Yep, and kind of self-insured too, and again, we can go into the details of the insurance stuff, that items and what's not, and happy to real, but again, this situation, and whether it was the city of Mount Vernon or a private owner, if kind of our contractors damages something that's not ours, you know, we're liable for it, and we tried to show here that we took ownership right away. All right, even before we knew what it was, right? We were out there, right, from Sunday afternoon, straight through getting the heat back on, which is the number one concern, was getting the heat back on for the fire station.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Right, Dr. Sproul. Thank you. The formidable Dr. Sproul, if you can come up, conclude our presentations for the night.
I am very short, and I was very obedient, about 10 minutes, so I will be very short. I thought it was appropriate to begin to, again, thank you for inviting me, council persons, and of course, Madam President. And I'm very appreciative, Ms. Caitlin. And I just want to say that in trying to reimagine the city of Mount Vernon, which is very important, people have characterized us and identified us in ways that are just not flattering. Just Google us and you begin to see the plethora of things people say about our beloved city. And I just want to say that there must be a kind of unifying approach to reinventing ourselves. And I believe that the best approach to reinventing Mount Vernon has to do with the uniqueness of the city, its many cultures, as well as its rich heritage. There's no other city like Mount Vernon, I would say, even in the state of New York. Mount Vernon, not only because we had the first African-American mayor in the state of New York, but what we've achieved in the past century, going from particularly those migrants who came up and the immigrants who followed us from the Caribbean, we've been able to go from poverty to prosperity, from powerlessness and discrimination to empowerment. And we sit here today making big decisions about what happens to these wonderful 4 square miles. But it's not just us. From the Bronxville line to the Bronx line, from Pelham to Yonkers, Mount Vernon has the most incredible heritage. So I come to ask the council to consider developing a formal study of the possibility of cultural and heritage tourism to unify our city. I was at the funeral Friday night. They're already talking about renaming it the Gus Williams Park. I want to say, okay, Gus, I love Gus. I knew Gus and Ray. I knew the whole family from Fifth Avenue. But just slow down. Think about what we're doing. We took Newber Avenue a few years ago and we renamed it our beloved Nina Simone. So what? It's nothing now. It's just a sign on a post. But if we think about how we can unify our city through its rich heritage and culture, we can redefine ourselves as the most unique community, not only in Westchester County, but probably New York State. Now, I'm proposing that we think about defining ourselves as historic Mount Vernon. There should be signs on the highway. You've been to, I know all of you have been on road trips and you've seen them. Historic this city, historic that city. It's an invitation to come in. Get off the highway and come see what our downtown looks like. And I think Mount Vernon has that capability because if you go, I've identified 6 major districts, historic districts in the city of Mount Vernon. One, of course, is the Fleetwood District. There's the Central City Historic District, which involves City Hall from First Street, the railroad track, all the way to Lincoln Avenue. But there's the Downtown District, the Historic Downtown District. There's the Southwest District, which I call the South Side. That's where I go, on the South Side. I want to ask you, are you related to the Seawoods? The Seawood family, are you related to them? You are. All right. So I know them. I knew them well. And David was a tremendous basketball player, but he's been forgotten, and you know David, yeah. But what I'm saying is that there's so much there that we pitch. I met with a consultant today and he was talking about naming 4th Avenue, Dick Clark Way or something like that. I said, slow down, just slow down. I love Dick Clark. But there's more. And if we as a city Now I'm looking at the banners, 1853, your city seal, 1892. However, we must understand that our 175th anniversary is coming up 2028. The centennial of this this building itself. 100 years, 2029. It's right here. The bicentennial of our great city. 2053 is a little ways off, but without a historical minded leadership and community and how we can unite our community through its history and its culture. I know we don't know who Adelina Patti is, but she's probably one of the greatest performers ever in the city of Mount Vernon. I'm not going to tell you who she is. Adelina Patti. She's greater than Dick Clark in many ways. A real diva of her time. She was an opera singer. I'll leave it there. But if we begin to go through the array of people all over this city, what are we ever going to do with Betty's house? What are we going to do with, I was in the EB White House the other day, 2.5 hours. We were invited, we got got the chance to take a look at it over at Summit and Sydney, right at the corner there. Wow. But we still have the Stevens house, don't we? That is our literal White House in our community. I'm not going to shame you, but we ought to be ashamed of how we've treated that property. There is an abandonment of the original village of Mount Vernon, which is the south side of Mount Vernon. That's the original village of our community. Closing Cecil H. Parker School? Wait a minute, that's a historic site. The Southside Boys Club is a historic site. I can tell you some stories about that place, and forget about the Northside Boys Club, which was only about 3 or 4 blocks away. Why did you need a Northside and a Southside Boys Club? See what I'm saying? We have a heritage of division. And that railroad track did it, but oh, no, it's not like that anymore, Spro. No. Psychologically, you would be surprised. I've been to Fleetwood and people tell me, oh, we up here don't go down there. And there's still some of us down here who are hesitant to go up there. It sounds strange, but we need to unify our community, and we can do it through culture and heritage. We can do this. Historic Mount Vernon, but we need some expertise. We need to hire professional tourism folk who know how to put these things together for us. And we can what? We can redefine ourselves as the great city we really are. The great city of Mount Vernon, New York. We can reinvent ourselves so people don't have to define us as, oh, that's the poorest city in all of Westchester County, or that's the crime-ridden or the corrupt. We don't need that anymore. We can redefine ourselves. We can define ourselves. And believe me, we can find hundreds of people who have graced this great city, who we can develop a tourism industry. There are plans for 4th Avenue, I know about. Believe me, I know about them. There are plans for First Street. There are plans for, of course, former Railroad Avenue, which is McQuestion Parkway. I know, but we still have not thought about it. How does our great heritage shape and form all of that? We have new people coming in all the time. They don't know anything about where they're moving, what it was, what it has to become for the balance of this. We got another 75 more years in this century. But we sit in places of power We sit in places of authority and we can make the great decision. We can no longer afford to abandon the South Side. See, so that Sixth Avenue corridor from Sanford Boulevard all the way down to First Street is a historical corridor. Starting with Cecil H. Parker School, there's a whole story that has not been told. You can go to the South Side Boys Club. They were here tonight. You can go right up to the next block, to the Stevens House, and go over to the Dole Center. Shelton Doles was a historical figure here. That's why they named it after him. You can go to Washington School in the next block, a historic theater, the Wood Auditorium, or now the Felicia Rashad Theater. It's a historic site. And Grace Baptist, of course, in the next block. That's a historic, boy, you could put together a kind of tourism just on that block alone, but we're abandoning it. Parker's closing. Maybe, we'll see, the Boys Club might be moving to First Street. Everybody wants to move closer to Central City or to the North Side. The South Side is the heart of this community, as well as the Creek sector. There are amazing historic tourist operations available at St. Paul's Church. I don't care what Eastchester says. That's us. It's in our territory. It's been there since about 1893 or 2. It's in our community. There are tremendous Black cemeteries back there that have not been exploited. Boy, tours back there would be fantastic. And I know Dr. David Osborne because I hired him. I used to be the chair of their board about 30 years ago. Great, great manager of that facility. But there's potential for us all over this city. In Fleetwood, over in the west portions, of course in Vernon Heights. But we must be mature about who we are and who we were. So I am done. Right now, I didn't even bring a presentation because you know what, I know I was told, but you got 10 minutes, buddy, I'm done. My 10 minutes are up. But I would love for us to consider doing some type of commission to study the possibility of cultural and heritage tourism for our city, to reshape it, to redefine it, to get those signs out on the Cross County Parkway, to get it out there on all the byways that go through and around our community. Come to historic Mount Vernon. And we'll provide the rest over time, meaning the restaurants, the market rate housing, and all the stuff that goes with it. And we'll be on our way to reshaping this community by 2053, which is the bicentennial of the great city of Mount Vernon. I'm done. Thank you very much. I could go on and on. I didn't prepare anything, but I can give you my notes. I'll leave those here with you because I've got some maps on them, what it looks like, historic Mount Vernon. I'll leave these here for you. And thank you so very, very, very much. And of course, Danielle, Madam President, will tell you, I'm not going to tell the story. You know the story I was going to tell. As a student, I was her principal. All right, thank you. So, are there any questions for me?
Councilman Potteet?
Wonderful presentation, even without those slides. I think you're 100% correct. Just one quick question I have because it's getting late. Any communities in the area or even in the tri-state area that you think do it right? Because I'm an advocate of copying best practice. So are there any towns that are somewhere around our size that you would say, yeah, that they do it the right way when it comes to historic tourism?
I can only do that on a national basis. I've been around the country looking for those types of cities. There's a historic Tarrytown right now. There's a historic Eastchester. I think the county just put $2.5 million in one house on Post Road for Eastchester. We can't do that for Stevens House. You know? So, but that's just one project. But yes, there are communities, but that's the kind of thing we need to be sitting down and talking about. Who can we emulate for best practices? That's an excellent question. I found some in the South, by the way, but everywhere I travel on the historic, they want, they consider their culture, their heritage as their wealth. And we are wealthy, wealthy, wealthy as a community. And not just my good friend Heavy. Heavy was my student as well. One quick story. I remember the day Heavy left the school. He didn't graduate. He came to my room and put his books on. He said, Dr. Sproul, I'm leaving school. I said, where are you going, Dwight? He said, I'm going through the studio. He left, and the rest is history. But Dwight was a wonderful student as well. Funny as he was I loved Dwight, and so, but when you go anywhere you go, money earned in Mount Vernon, we're more than that. We're more than that. We are a tremendous community, and I implore you to at least invite me again, and so that we can talk about this again. But this whole idea of historic Mount Vernon as a way to redefine these wonderful 4 square miles. Historic Pelham, they don't have anything over us, and that's what they call themselves, historic Pelham. Historically, we're surrounded by, but not us. Of course, that's not right. We'll fix it, I hope. Madam President, again, thank you. Are there any questions from anyone else?
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Sproul.
I'll
Appreciate
give
you
these
coming
people-
out.
Just one comment. Thank you for wonderful. I too was one of your students. I think it was 2003. You're still there.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So yeah, quite a few of us up here.
That's wonderful.
No, I just want to thank you. You've always been a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate it now. Appreciated it back then. So thank you, and I'll plan on listening. Picking your ear in the future as well. So thank
Yeah,
you.
invite me back because we've had a lot to talk about. We've got some dates approaching us as a city. And I think the 100th anniversary, the centennial of this building requires us to do a little refurbishing on the outside and, and brush it up. That's just civic pride. We need to do that, shine it up for the centennial. That's just a recommendation. Okay?
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you, Dr.
And
Sproul.
I'll leave some of my notes with you. All
Awesome.
right?
Yeah, you can put it on the table in
Okay.
front and we'll grab them later.
All right,
Thank you. All right, council members, we have an interview. Do I have a motion to go into executive session for?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session. 4.
Second.
I'm sorry, for a personnel issue. Interview.
We got a second from Councilman Thompson. Roll call.
Councilman Box Hill,
Hi.
Councilwoman Gleason,
Aye?
Councilman Potteet, Councilman Thompson,
Aye.
Council President Brown,
Aye. Do we have a motion to exit executive session?
I make a motion to exit executive session.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Box Hill,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gleason,
Aye.
Councilman Potteet,
Aye.
Councilman Thompson,
Aye.
Council President Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna get into the tally sheet, legislation and public works.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting lost in, these trading cards for Gus Williams that are such a blessing. Okay, good evening, Mount Vernon, LPW. Number one, Mayor's Office, an ordinance authorizing a budget transfer to cover future purchases within the office of the mayor. That is on the agenda. Item number two, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and chief of staff to attend the African American Mayors Association, AMA, annual conference in Washington, DC, and approving related expenditures, April 16th to April 18th. That is on the agenda. Item number three, Public Works, Department of Public Works, an ordinance establishing a list of qualified environmental sustainability consultants. That is on the agenda. Item number four, Department of Public Works, an ordinance authorizing Curtis Woods, city engineer, to attend the New York State Buildings Officials Conference for required in-service training. That is on the agenda. Item number five, Department of Public Works, an ordinance imposing fees in addition to fines and request reimbursement of costs incurred in response to an illicit sewer discharge incident. That is on the agenda. Okay, item number six, Public Works, Department of Public Works, an ordinance authorizing the selection of HVEA engineers for design and construction inspection services for the South Fulton Avenue Bridge Rehabilitation Project. That is on the agenda. Item number seven, Department of Public Works, an ordinance authorizing the selection of Woodard and Curran for the South Third and South Columbus Avenue Flood Mitigation Project under the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. That's down by Salvation Army. That is on the agenda. Item number eight, Department of Public Works, an ordinance authorizing the budget line transfer within the Department of Public Works to cover the cost of additional software services from iWorks Systems Incorporated. That is on the agenda. Item number nine, Department of Public Works, an ordinance authorizing the adoption of the iWorks technological and inspection solution for the Department of Public Works. That is on the agenda. Item number 10, Board of Water Supply, an ordinance establishing the position of senior account clerk within the Board of Water Supply. That is on the agenda. Item number 11, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Vernon, New York, recognizing the lifelong dedication and legacy of Billy Mitchell, affectionately known as Mr. Apollo. That is on the agenda. Item number 12, City Council, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Vernon, New York, honoring the legacy and lifetime achievement of Mount Vernon's very own Gus Williams. That is on the agenda. That was also presented to the family at the funeral on Friday. Item number 13, City Council, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Vernon, New York, celebrating the extraordinary life of Deaconess Sarah Bush Howell on her 100th birthday. Happy birthday. That is on the agenda. Item number 13, City Clerk, City Council, request for support for the installation of a fence around the vacant lot at 326 Hawthorne Terrace to address safety and quality of life concerns. That is on the agenda. Well, I'm gonna make that agenda pending.
That's information only.
Only information, okay. Did not realize that. For information only. I don't see, I will have an add-on tomorrow.
All
And
right.
that will be for, well, I'll have it, right, for adding the person for the cable advisory?
I believe so.
Yeah, so I'll have an add-on tomorrow
All
for
right.
that position.
Human Resources?
Thank you, Madam President. I have item number 15, An ordinance authorizing the Department of Recreation to accept payments via automated clearinghouse, ACH, and wire transfer for Memorial Field, revenue, that's on the agenda. Item number 16 from the Recreation Department, an ordinance authorizing the Department of Recreation to sponsor the annual Easter egg, hunt celebration in Hartley Park. That was gonna be agenda pending, but I have all the information, so that's on the agenda. Item number 17, Recreation Department, an ordinance authorizing the establishment of the summer outdoor movie series as an official annual event of the City of Mount Vernon Department of Recreation. That's on the agenda. Item number 18 from the Youth Bureau, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a service agreement with the Westchester Board of Legislators for the funding and operation of Safe Haven Youth Empowerment Program and set up through the Westchester County CBO funding for $180,718, commencing January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, and that's on the agenda. That's all I have, no add-ons.
Thank you. Questions for Human Resources? Public
No
safety-
questions.
Public Safety and Code.
Thank you, Council President. An ordinance requiring code enforcement officials to attend the New York State Building Officials Conference for mandatory in-service training. That's on the agenda. Item number 20 is for information purposes only from Consumer Protection, the January 2025 monthly report. Item number 21 is on the agenda from Public Safety, and ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Interaction Insight Corporation for the renewal of the NICE Informed V7 plan from the Police Department. Item number 22 is on the agenda from Public Safety, and ordinance authorizing the attendance of 2 members of service at the FBI LEEDA Supervisor Leadership Institute training. Item number 23, 22 is on the agenda. Item number 23 from Public Safety, and ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a maintenance agreement with Cummins Allison for the period of February 19, 2025 to February 18, 2026 is on the agenda. Item number 24 from the city clerk, a resolution appointing members of the Mount Vernon Economic Development Task Force is definitely on the agenda. And item number 25 will be agenda pending from Public Safety, and ordinance authorizing the purchase of the RICI live scan and mugshot system replacement from DataWorks Plus for the Support Services Division of the Department of Public Safety. And that's all I have.
Lisa?
Okay, item number 19.
Mhm.
How many of the code enforcers are going, and will we have at least one staying behind?
One staying behind at the conference?
No, one, how many people are going?
It's 2. Let me just read my notes.
I
again.
just want to make sure we're not going to be without a code enforcer.
Oh, yeah, good point. It's 2. Let me just double check that, but it's 2 going.
Okay, and then my other question was item number 25.
Mhm.
Are we purchasing a brand new system?
Yes, that's why it is agenda pending.
Okay, so do we get any, does this follow the procurement
That's
policy?
why it is agenda pending. So what happened is, because we have the new Tyler software, that software system isn't compatible with our old scanners. That's an issue. But again, to your questions, what type of procurement policy was followed? I'm not sure.
Okay, so that would be my question.
Same,
Alright,
same,
thank
same
you.
question. I had.
Okay.
Madam President?
Councilman Box Hill?
All right, thank you. Number 26, from the IDA, Resolution requesting New York State Senator Jamal T. Bailey and Assembly Member James Gary Pretlow for introduction of home rule legislation to amend tax law to authorize the collection of hotel occupancy tax in the city of Mount Vernon. Yeah, this was on before. We just wanted to add the whereas, which included language that specifically identified Airbnbs. So that's gonna be on the agenda. All right, number 27 from the Law Department, an ordinance to authorize the conveyance of 0 Vernon Avenue, Mount Vernon, New York to Myrtle Jones, and to authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents. That is on the agenda. Number 28 from the City Council, a resolution requesting New York State Senator Jamal T. Bailey and Assembly Member James Gary Pretlow for introduction of home rule legislation to increase transfer tax fee. That's on the agenda as well. From the City Council, number 29, an ordinance authorizing the establishment of custodial accounts for property development projects. That's 22 West First Street and the Boys and Girls Club. That is also on the agenda. Number 30, a resolution adopting a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA for the Mount Vernon East zoning amendments. That's on the agenda. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have.
Any questions for finance and planning? Councilman Potteet?
Councilmember Box, item number 29, and I can't open it on my phone. The Boys and Girls Club, they were clear, they were here for information purposes only. And they seem like they're a ways away from coming to us for an actual action. Why are we establishing custodial accounts for a project that's sounds like months off, if not a year off?
It was my understanding that's procedure. Did you want to talk about that? I got the letter from.
About it. So we're
Council President.
establishing, custodial accounts because some of the review, so whatever they submit, when we need our attorneys to review it, instead of the city paying out of pocket, these custodial accounts will be funded by the developers so that any discussions we need to bring our attorney in or our consultant in, they will pay it so that we're not paying it. So that's why we're establishing it now. So if they come back with a different version to get our thoughts, we had council here tonight, so that's what it would cover.
Question, are there any projects that we're looking at that don't have this set up? I see what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. So do we have any development projects that we're looking at?
Not
where
that I
this
know
isn't
about.
set? Okay, cool. Thank you.
And we've done this with 3 or 4 projects prior that we voted on.
Any other questions for finance and planning?
I make a motion to adjourn.
You don't need a motion?
Oh, we don't need-
All right, this is, the conclusion of the meeting. I do want to remind everyone that tomorrow is February 11th, and we do have a special election for the county executive position. So I encourage everyone to go out, make their voices heard, and vote in that election. All right, anything else? All right, have a great night.